Hi, this is Ant from Speakerstack Music. In today's music tutorial we're going to be working in Ableton 10 using the arrangement view, and we're going to be looking at putting some drums in using the impulse instrument. And the idea being that within 100 minutes we've created a song from scratch using Ableton's arrangement view. So each video I'm going to be posting is going to be about 10 minutes long. So we're working in the arrangement view here. I've created a project which I've called Autobahn 432, which apparently is the top speed that someone's got to on the Autobahn. And we're going to be doing a dance track. So I've set the BPM as 120, and we're going to be working within some MIDI tracks, adding in impulse instruments into these MIDI tracks. So the first thing is to go to all the instruments in Ableton, open up instruments, and drop an impulse into each of these. I'm not going to drop it into an audio one. Let's just delete that. Let's create a few more MIDI tracks. I think we're going to have probably about 4 or 5 to begin with for the time being. I'm going to rename these so we can do that now. That's going to be the kick. That's going to be the snare. It's going to be for the toms. Oops, can't type. That's going to be for the open hi-hats. It's going to be for the closed hi-hats. And I think we'll just put one more in for some effects, which I'm going to decide what we put in as we go along. Okay, so we've dropped some names into those channels. I'm going to click and drag on the impulse instrument, drop that into the kick section. So you'll notice that we haven't dropped in a particular preset, we've just put in the instrument. So we now need to go into the samples section and tell it which preset we want it to play. And you've got a whole library here of Ableton sample sounds that you can drop in, and you can build your kick up this way, and it just builds your drum kit up this way, and it just gives you more versatility, and you can actually apply individual effects to each of the sounds within the kit. So it's a lot more flexible. So I'm going to drop in the kick alien spawn into here, preset it here, and then to create the track, I'm just going to open up a section of the song and click on it, and this is very similar to the clip view that you use in Ableton Session View. And then using the draw mechanism, I'm just going to drop in a kick beat like that. Just drag those notes out a little bit, make them a little bit longer. Great, so that's got something going for the kick. Now for the snare, let's go in and pick something for the snare. Again, we need to add in an impulse instrument into the snare section and go into the samples, drop down to the snare. I'm looking for something quite punchy to cut through the mix on this, so I think we'll go for something which is quite punchy. If I can just find it. Oops, dropping it into the wrong bit. Okay, so that's some snare put in, and again we're just going to open up a section of the song, and again just drop in a snare. Oops, what am I doing? I'm going to put that on the off beats. Not on the off beats, on the second and fourth beats within each bar. Let's just audition that, see how that sounds. Okay, great. So starting to build up the track, and what you can do now is you can actually start to copy and paste or duplicate these sections and just have them running through, and then if you drag over and highlight it, you can just copy across and just start to build that up. And we've split it up into separate chunks, so each section you can actually go in and amend. I'm just going to give myself some room. So we've got about 3 minutes 45 seconds worth of kick drum there. That's probably going to be enough for the time being. And again, I'm just going to duplicate the snare in. And again, if we just highlight a longer section, you can actually duplicate more. Probably don't need those last 4. Let's just take those off. 4 bars. Okay, and then we're on to the hi-hats now. So again, I'm going to go into Impulse. Drop that in as an instrument, then again into the sample section, and again if we scroll up, we've got all the drum kits. I mean, there's other samples in here as well, but all the drum kit samples are in here. And again, we just need something for the open hi-hats. That's quite nice. Oh, actually drop that in as a sample. Let's just go back, drop in Impulse again, and then go to the sample, drop that in there. So again, we're going to have the open hats at the start of, oh, that's in the toms bit. Let's just try to do that too fast. Let's just drop that down. In the start of every bar, let's just see how that comes across. Not brilliantly happy with the hi-hat sound there, so just going to go back in and see if we can find something that's a bit clearer. Okay, let's just try that. So drop that in. So the great thing is you can actually swap these samples and effects around as you're creating the tune, just to find the right kind of sound that you're looking for. So if you actually go into the Impulse instrument here, you can see that you can actually start to mess around with the hi-hat sound a little bit more. Just drag some of the decay back a little bit. Let's just copy that across so it's actually happening in all the song. Okay, so that's gone all the way across. Let's just play back that sound again. Okay, so starting to build that up, and then we'll put something in for the closed hats here. Again, dropping Impulse in as an instrument into the closed hats track, then going into the samples, and again just finding a really nice hi-hat closed sound that we're looking for. Quite like that one, so I'm going to drop that in. And for something like this, we need this to fill in some of the gaps within each of the bars. So we need something that's going to propel the sound forward a little bit more. So I'm going to drop the hi-hats in on the offbeat. Let's just see how this sounds. Right, just take those out, and if you hover over it and get it exactly right and then press duplicate, it should then drop in to the other half, because we've got a couple of bars in each of these chunks of sound, these blocks of sound, these loops of sound. So let's just see how that sounds. And again, I'm just going to go in and duplicate that across the track. Okay, great stuff. So we've got a kick drum in, we've got a snare beat in, we've got hi-hats in, and we've got closed hats in. Let's go in and see if we can find something on the effects front to drop into the sound. Again, using the impulse instrument, dropping that in as an instrument, and then going to the samples section. Let's see what we've got in here. So there's a clap there with a bit of an echo on it. I quite like that. That's going to just add a bit more ambience and space to the sound. So I'm going to drop that in. And again, if we put that down, just click on that, drop in a couple of bars. Oh, I've done it in the wrong track again. Let's just drop it down to there. Definitely wanting to try and put something in that toms track at the moment. Play that again. It just makes things a little bit more interesting in the mix. And what we've done here is built up some blocks of sound that we can drop stuff out, take stuff out, mess around with it, change the structure of it, because the way we've got it set up as loops of sound. So again, you might want to have something where the kick doesn't come in for the first couple of bars, just as an intro. And I think I might do something similar in the middle. Just going to increase the BPM as well, just to give a bit more pace to it. And then finally, let's put some toms in. Again, dropping the impulse instrument in. And then scrolling right down in the samples, put some toms in. I think we'll go for something quite crisp on the toms. Let's drop those in there. Again, select a couple of bars. There's the instrument. And I think I'll just drop something in at the end of each bar and see if that kind of propels it forward a bit. It might not work, but let's give it a go. Okay, so that's sounding quite nice and quite tribal. And what I'm going to do now is just put some effects on some of those sounds just to start to play around with how they're set up in the mix. But before I do that, I'm just going to pan out some of these instruments. I think the toms are coming through as quite loud in the mix. Let's just turn those down. In fact, let's play it while we're doing that. That'd be the sensible thing to do. Pan those sounds across. Fantastic. Okay. Right, so I think we're going to put some effects on some of these instruments. So the kick, you'll notice there, I've panned that central because anything that's in the lower frequencies needs to be central. I've got the snare and the toms center for the time being, but I might move those across and just pan those a little bit as we go along. And then I've got the effects going off to one side and the closed hats to the other, and I've kept the open hats in the middle. Again, we can play around with that as we go along, but it's just to see how that sounds. So we go to the audio effects section, and you're looking at applying some kind of corrective effects at this point in time. So I'm just want to put something on the kick just to make that punchier and come through a little bit more in the mix. Take off the makeup gain because it won't help us with this. We don't want anything like that added. And for this, we will want a release of probably about 20 milliseconds. What that's doing is it's just delaying the impact of the sound a little bit. And I'm going to change the ratio to 3:1. So what that means is anything that's going above the threshold will then be compressed at a kind of a moderate level. Let's just see how that sounds. And then finally with the EQ, again with something like this, we really just want to kind of boost the kick sound in the lower frequency. So I'm just going to roll off, just apply a high pass filter to the kick sound because we don't want anything too far below that. And then I'm just going to boost it a little bit around that 100 Hertz range, just to fatten the sound at that end. And then for the snare, we're going to add in some EQ in the snare. And again, we're just going to cut out anything that's in those lower frequencies. And again, we're just going to boost the snare at a slightly higher frequency than the kick, just so it sits in a different place in the mix. The other thing to do is with this is just to make sure that you've got the master turned down, and you don't want anything that's coming out any more than kind of minus 6 decibels. So we've got that in there, and we've turned it down a little bit there, just to give us a bit of headroom when we actually then start mixing the rest of the song. And then I'm just going to apply some EQ to these top sections, so that we've actually got those sitting in a higher frequency. And then we really need to be boosting the sound of that at the higher end because we've taken all of the bottom end out of it. Just have a quick play around there. I'm just going to put a little bit of reverb on the open hi-hats just to get that sound coming out a little bit more. just add a little bit more into those hats, just to kind of make it a bit more interesting. And again, let's just copy that across into the other tracks, into the other sections of that track. And then finally, for the closed hats, again, let's put some EQ8 on that section. And again, we just want to make sure that that's sitting a bit higher in the frequency range so that it fits nicely in that sound. So it's just making it a bit crisper, taking all the bottom end, the low frequencies out of those hats so that they just sit a bit higher in the mix. Just gives them a bit more space. And again, I'm just going to put a little bit more reverb on the hats, those closed hats. Audio effects, reverb, drop that down. Okay, great. So just starting to build up a drum sound, and obviously we need to build some variety into this, so I think the next thing to do now is just to put some fills in these drum sections, so that we can actually start to build up the sections of the song. But what I would probably do now is, we've got a basic beat to work with. I will now go and build some instruments on top of that, and then once we get a sense of what's coming out as part of the song structure, we can actually add to the drums, mess around with the patterns that we've got in those clip sections that we have in the song, and actually get them working to support the structure of the song that we're looking for. Fantastic. So that ends the first video. That's how you basically build a drum kit using Impulse in Ableton's arrangement view. It was very much a crash course because, as I said, we're aiming to produce a song in 100 minutes. So there you go. In video 2, we will be adding in some sub bass. So I look forward to speaking to you in the next video. And thank you for listening to this video.